Let's talk about the biggest thing on every Tesla investor's mind, the Robotaxi network. How fast can this thing actually grow? I mean, the hype around the new Cybercab is absolutely off the charts. But today we're going to pump the brakes a little and do a reality check on what's actually happening on the ground. Okay, so first up, the Cybercab. This is the purpose-built vehicle that everyone sees as the key to unlocking massive growth for the network. And guess what? We just got a huge, huge clue that things are finally officially starting to move. Now, you might see this picture of a Cybercab at an In-N-Out burger joint and think, so what? They got hungry. But you have to understand, for Tesla insiders, this is a huge deal. It's a long-standing tradition. When a new vehicle prototype shows up at In-N-Out, it's the unofficial signal that production is beginning. And look, this isn't just fan speculation or rumors flying around. Elon Musk himself came out and confirmed it. He said they're testing the production system right now, and the real ramp up for mass production starts in April 2026. This is a massive sign that things are actually on schedule.
But okay, even with all this fantastic news about the Cybercab, there's this tension, a real gap between the grand, world-changing vision for this network and the actual boots-on-the-ground pace of the rollout we've seen so far.
I mean, this quote right here says it all. This is the vision. Elon isn't talking about a small change. He's talking about a tsunami, a massive, unstoppable wave of self-driving cars that's just going to wash over everything. That's the hype. But then, here's the reality check. In the first 6 months, that tsunami has been more like a slow rising tide. We're talking about 165 cars total, across 2 cities, Austin and the Bay Area. Now, it's definitely growing, don't get me wrong, but it's a very methodical, step-by-step process, not some overnight flood. And this just shows you how tough it is to predict the pace. My own forecast, which I honestly thought was pretty conservative, was for 500 cars by the end of last year. The actual number came in almost 3 times lower. It basically means Tesla is running about 2 full quarters behind what even I thought was a reasonable expectation. So with that in mind, let's actually dig into the numbers, shall we? Because the data tells a really specific story about how this network is actually being built, one city at a time. So you can see the pattern right here. It started super small, right? Just about 11 cars in Austin. Then, by the end of Q3, it crept up to 30 cars as the Bay Area came online. And then, bam, in the fourth quarter, you see this huge leap up to 165. And that was almost all because of the expansion in one specific area. And this chart makes that crystal clear. Even though the Bay Area launched after Austin, it has just exploded. It's now the main focus, with a fleet about 4 times bigger. And that tells us something really important. Once Tesla gets a foothold and gets comfortable in a new area, they can really pour on the gas. So the growth isn't a straight line up. It looks more like flat, flat, and then a big jump. It happens in these sudden bursts. And the next big jump? It could be just around the corner. Tesla just got approval for over 1,600 vehicles in California. They could literally double their entire fleet, like overnight if they wanted to. Okay, so why does this all matter to Tesla's actual business? I mean, a few hundred cars, big deal, right? Well, when you start projecting this growth pattern out into 2026, you start to see how this becomes a very, very serious business very fast. Now look, these are just projections, okay? But they're based on that big jump growth model we've been seeing. And if that holds, the fleet could more than double every single quarter. And just look at what that does to the revenue. We go from about 40 million in Q1 to over 100 million in Q2, all the way up to $750 million in a single quarter by the end of the year. So here's the kicker. If this forecast, which is optimistic but definitely plausible, comes true, Tesla's robotaxi business could end 2026 with a revenue run rate of $3 billion. That is a number that absolutely moves the needle, even for a company as big as Tesla. A $3 billion business. That's a huge prize. So you have to ask yourself, with that kind of potential and the Cybercab on the way, what's holding back the tsunami? Why can't they just flood the streets with cars? Well, the bottleneck isn't what most people think. See, the problem isn't making the cars. Let's be real. Tesla is a car-making machine. They could build all the cars they need. The real bottleneck, the thing that's slowing everything down, is all the slow, messy, complicated grunt work you have to do to launch in every single new city.
Just imagine for a second. Let's pretend Tesla's factory is just a monster, cranking out 500,000 purpose-built cybercabs every single quarter. They basically have an infinite supply of robotaxis just sitting there, ready to go. Now hold that massive number in your head and compare it to this one. 165. That's how many cars they actually managed to get on the road in 6 full months. It doesn't matter how many cars you can build if you can't actually deploy them. That gap, that is the real challenge. Because every single new city is like its own little startup. It takes months of what you call blocking and tackling, just the hard, unglamorous groundwork. You got to test the software on every local street, you have to fight through a maze of city-specific rules and regulations, you got to get approvals, and you got to build out all the chargers and service centers. It's a 3 to 6 month slog every single time.
But if you just zoom out for a second, way out past the quarterly numbers and the city-by-city grind, all of this slow, hard work is laying the foundation for something that could fundamentally change not just how we get around, but the entire fabric of our society.
The ripple effects here go way beyond just getting a ride. Think about redesigning entire cities that are no longer built around parking spaces and personal cars. All those parking lots could become parks. That could completely change real estate values. And what happens at night? The whole network could flip into the silent electric logistics fleet, delivering packages while we all sleep.
And you've got to remember, the United States is just the opening act. It's only 5% of the world's population. They're already working on getting approvals in places like the UAE. The true potential here is global. 95% of the market is still completely untouched.
And I think this quote just perfectly captures the whole situation. Everybody is so focused on the short term, on the quarter-to-quarter numbers, and maybe getting a little impatient with the pace. But by focusing on that, we might be completely underestimating the absolute scale of the transformation that's coming in the long run. So we're left with this final thought. Yes, the rollout is a slow, difficult, city-by-city grind of blocking and tackling. But is that slow grind just the necessary first step in a revolution that will, in the end, truly change everything? That's the multi-trillion-dollar question.